Hi, I'm here to show you how to pick up your stitches to do an afterthought heel. So you're ready to do your afterthought heel, you have your scrap yarn in place, and now you need to pick up the stitches so that you can do that afterthought heel. And these are 2 at a time, toe up, using the magic loop method. So I'm going to actually show you how this works. So what you do is you have to turn the sock around because you got to get that very first stitch. And if you realize by looking at the stitches, each stitch kind of looks like a horseshoe. It goes around. And what I'm trying to do is pick up the right leg of every stitch. So if you look at this red yarn, see how that's a stitch right there? So I'm going to go right underneath there, and you see that stitch right there, the right leg. Then I go to the next one and pick up the right leg, and I just move the scrap edge out of the way. I have it kind of locked in place so it wouldn't pull out because my yarn was kind of short. And then I'm just picking up my legs all the way to the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the stitches all the way across here and all the way across here, and then I'm going to meet you on the other side so we can talk about how to pick up the stitches on the other side. So if you look right here, what I have right here is I've picked up 22 stitches along this edge and 22 stitches along here, and make sure that you count it. What you do is you count on how many stitches you have on your actual sock, which is 22 stitches, and you need to make sure you actually picked up 22 stitches here, remembering that your stitch looks like a horseshoe. And if you look at it really closely, see this stitch right here? That's the stitch that I'm pulling from, and I just picked up the very right hand leg of each stitch. So my cast on provisional or scrap yarn cast on, and here's the right stitch of every edge, and I have 22 stitches on each side. So now I'm going to flip it around. I flip it around, and I need to pick up 22 stitches on this bottom edge so that it'll be ready to knit. So let me show you what I'm doing. I'm picking up stitches on sock number 1 in the front, sock number 2 in the front. I'm turning it around, picking it up on the back side of sock number 2, and then the back side of sock number 1. Okay, so go ahead and you just watch how I do this. So I'm looking for my horseshoe again, and you say, where is that stitch? Here it is. Here's your first stitch right here. This right here is not a full stitch. This right here is a full stitch. So we want to pick up that right hand leg. See that right hand leg right there? And then you would pick up the next one on the right hand leg and the next one on the right hand leg. We're looking for horseshoes, right hand leg of our horseshoe, okay? And then we'll go all the way across. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up stitches again right here, and we're going to meet at the end so we can talk about how you actually knit this. Okay, so I'm here, and I've picked up the stitches on this back side of your sock here. And if you look at it really closely, here's my stitch right here on this side, and I pick up that right hand leg just like we did on the other side. See? Stitch, horseshoe, look, and then there's the stitch we're looking for. Okay? So I did that. So now we turn it back around. So we have sock number 1, and let me show you what my skeins of yarn look like. So I have these 2 balls that I've cut in half, and we have actually wound them into skeins so I can pull from the outside of the yarn or the inside of the yarn. And so I'm not cutting anything from the top of my sock, I'm just leaving it that way. And I'm taking that ball and I'm getting a nice strand of yarn to use, and I'm going to begin knitting. So I go ahead, like we always do in magic loop. I'm going to leave this scrap yarn in place. Let it hold the stitches tight for me while I knit the first couple rows, and the pickup will look really nice. So I just go ahead and put that first stitch on there, making sure to leave that 6 to 8 inch tail for you to be able to wind on. And then I just make sure that's a little bit snug, and I'm just going to continue knitting on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit across here, and then I will show you how we deal with this backside. So what we're looking at right here is I've knit across right here on sock number 1 and sock number 2. So if you look right here, here's our waste yarn in the center there. And I've knit a row, but it doesn't impact the part that I've been knitting. It doesn't get in the way at all. It's just holding the stitches nice and tight there, so they don't get all cockeyed when you're trying to knit. They're held in place by that scrap yarn. And here we are right here. And then if you look at your working yarn, they're right here at the very ends. So I would turn my work, just turn it like that. And then I pull this back needle out because that's my last stitch that I've knit. And I pick up my working yarn again. This is kind of tangled up here, sorry about that. And then I would just go ahead and knit across here and knit across here. And then I will show you how to remove your scrap yarn in just a moment. Okay, so now what we're looking at here is I've done one more round. I've started decreasing for my Afterthought heel, and so I have a total of 2 rounds on here. But if you look at these real close up here, this pickup on this Afterthought heel for picking up the stitches looks pretty darn clean. And you see I still have the scrap yarn in the middle. It's still hanging on there. Let me show you the other side what this looks like. Here it is on this side. There's my picked up stitches. Looks pretty darn nice. Okay, so what you need to do next is you can actually just open that up like that, and you very carefully find one of those red strands of yarn, and make sure that when you're picking up dropping in your scrap yarn, make sure to always use a contrasting color. That really helps you with your scrap yarn, being able to see what you're doing. And then you just slowly start opening this up, and you can take it out of here. And then you have your stitches are all picked up. It's all been held in place by that wonderful scrap yarn just sticking there. Normally, when they have you place that scrap yarn, they'll have you cut that scrap yarn right away, cut it out. But I venture to say your picked up stitches look much better when you wait and you knit a few rounds and actually let that scrap yarn work for you instead of taking it out prematurely. So you would just go all the way to the edge, and you see how it's open here and it's knit completely perfectly. See, those stitches are absolutely perfect. So that's how I have learned to pick up my stitches for my Afterthought heel, and using this scrap yarn to hold your stitches in place so you have a perfect pickup. So you go ahead and try this technique and see how it works for you, and if you find anything that helps anyone, go ahead and comment in comments, okay? This is my pattern for the Simply Striped sock pattern that I'm going to be releasing for you begin to knit sock knitters. So what I wanted to show you is we picked up our scrap yarn edge on both sides of our heel here, and it looks pretty darn awesome. This sock hasn't been blocked yet. I did weave in the end a little bit right here, but very, very little. It's completely flat. It was really not much to it. This is the side where it hasn't been woven in yet, and there is a little tiny bit of gap right there, but it'll very easily be corrected with when I weave in my ends. So that is your Afterthought heel when it's completed. And see how nice those picked up stitches turned out? And here's the other one. See how nice that turned out? Turned out great. And then I Kitchenered the end together when I was done knitting this. And also I want to point out that when I was knitting this socks and I started doing the heels, I did not cut my yarn from up above here. I used the other end of the sock, the cake. They call it a cake. So I used one edge to do the heel, and then the other edge was still attached to my work on top. That way I can continue knitting now until I completely run out of yarn and have just enough to do my bind off at the top. And I have one less end to weave in because I didn't cut the yarn. And so I'm going to use all the rest of this yarn to knit the top of the cuff, and then I will bind off. And this will be the Simply Striped sock pattern that I'll be releasing. So hopefully you'll enjoy the Afterthought heel. It is great for a begin to sock knitter. and doing it in magic loop 2 at a time is phenomenal, so give that a go, and hope you enjoyed this video.